Hey, it's Tess, content creator, model, presenter, and host of the Tess Talks podcast, on a mission to ignite curiosity. I'm so excited to have you on too, because I've been obviously lucky enough to experience your breathwork and your workshops, your fire and ice workshops, and a bit of meditation at St. Haven, which are honestly truly pretty remarkable. I've had some amazing experiences.
Thank you. So have I.
I bet you have.
Because of people turning up and getting amongst it.
It's an amazing community that they've built there.
Yes.
Yeah. So this podcast is all about curiosity. So I'm curious to know, what was it in your life that stemmed this curiosity to enter this field of mindfulness and breathwork?
The curiosity started from pain to begin with. It was being raised in a very beautiful way from my parents, and like around sport and being healthy in general, getting outside, playing with my brother, just like an active life. And then sport took precedence and I was playing overseas, and I sort of lost that element of curiosity of true health for me. But it was always built in through my upbringing. So I was very blessed to have that. But it began with basically getting sick of the way I was living and knowing intuitively that life could be much better, way more fulfilling, way more loving, especially self-love. And that's something I'd love to speak more about, like true self-love. So that curiosity started from going like, right, okay, how do I want my life to be? How can I design my life to be more fulfilling? And often that comes from pain for people. And for me, it was pain. It was like, I'm getting sick of being injured in rugby. I want more like light, literal light in my life. I was living in Holland at the time, playing for the national team and for a club over there, which I loved. And there was a point where I was doing a lot of party drugs and drinking a lot of alcohol, and deep self-judgment was just there every single time I felt like rotten at the core. And I knew I could get rid of that because of this immense joy I felt as a child. I was like, that is never gone. We just forget that we have it. And so I was like, I want that again, so bad. And then one day I found a YouTube video with the amazing Wim Hof, the crazy Dutch dude.
Crazy Dutch dude. He does all the monkey dancing and stuff as well.
Exactly. We may have done that in fire and ice too.
I think we did actually, yeah. I did one of his workshops once, which I can talk about later. But yeah, he's definitely a little wacko.
Yeah, he is. He's nut job.
Yeah.
But he knows who he is. And I think a lot of what we do is we appear to have it all together and do a lot of things for other people rather than ourselves. And I was like, that's part of the reason why when I watched this YouTube video of him and Yes Theory, the boys from Yes Theory, get together in his Poland retreat space, they were just free. They were doing the simple things like getting into the cold water, breath, but also connecting to themselves through meditation and stillness, and connecting to each other over, a hot cacao or a tea, or I think they were doing shots in the sauna at some point.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's like fun and free and open and joyful. And that pain of, being in Holland, knowing that I could be doing better, knowing that I could be feeling a lot more and living more abundantly, that pain of knowing how good that could be and where I was, that gap is what started to pull me more over to that space of true health.
It's such a common story too, isn't it? And I think that's because of the way that our society is structured, that we're so distracted from being connected to ourselves, and we put so much focus on the doing as opposed to the being. And I think that's why we see so much of this disconnectedness within society and so much of this stress and this overwhelm. Because we've just lost touch of what it means to be connected to ourselves.
100%. And that there's loads of people that say this on podcasts, but we're not human doings, we're human beings.
I love that.
And sure, because we live in a capitalist society where we need income to live, money just doesn't appear. We need to create and produce to then get that energy exchange. We need to do, and we're built to do as well. We're built to create things and, try new things and grow. And I think we've just lent too far that way, and that leads to chronic stress and dis-ease or disease in the body, all these different manifestations of us not stopping, standing still, breathing, connecting to other people properly, and listening to our intuition. We have this amazing body that can grow people inside of it, and it has this very acute sense to listen to what is true, and that's called our intuition. And if we actually stop, breathe, get into nature, get your feet on the grass, you're so intelligent and your body knows. And this piece of hardware has been around for, I think mammals, came to existence 300 million years ago. So this has been learning for 300 million years. And yet now we use our mind to drive the body a lot of the time. So what I advocate for and what I am passionate about is to give people the space to push their body, but also to understand it, listen to it, get to know it, and use it as a really powerful, positive, loving tool for abundance.
So how did that transition look like for you when you transitioned out of that lifestyle that was no longer serving you and you stepped into this new world? What did that look like?
There isn't like a black and white moment. There was sort of that moment in Holland where I wanted change, but I was up in Sydney a couple of days ago and I was out, on the town with my brother, partying and having fun. And so I'm not against these things. Like alcohol is just plain and simple not good for you, like not good for your liver or anything like that, but it's part of human connection. And anything that's going to genuinely bring people closer together, I'm all about. But for me, it started I remember writing down on this piece of paper, and this is a really cool practice people can do.
Love.
Instead of goal setting, which again is like mind, you can create a life by design. And just like you design a beautiful home, you can design your life the way you want it. So there was a book that I read called The Winner's Bible, and this guy, Kerry Spackman, you get this A3 folder and you put all these different things inside it. And there's a couple of things I want to talk about here, but the first one was your optimal future. And so your optimal future is where you write down feelings, things, places, ways of being, different experiences that you want, and then your goals sort of are derived from that. But it's more of a way of being rather than a way of doing. And so I created this Winner's Bible, which I still have at home, and I still flick through it. And I wrote down things like, I want to work in a high vibrational wellness facility that serves my health and other people's health. This was 3 years ago too.
Wow.
And I also asked for a Golf R and an M3 BMW. I don't have those yet, but maybe soon.
They're coming. Let us know when they arrive.
Yes. And a whole host of different things, like the best food in the world. My body is this place of peace and joy and strength. And slowly over time, I've optimized my habits, the people I'm hanging out with, the podcasts I listen to, the stuff I don't do and choose not to do, all based on this optimal future. And now looking back on that 3 years ago to today, I'm ticking most of those boxes and I feel incredible. And it was so worth it. Another really cool part of that Winner's Bible that I did, and this is something I reckon we should do more of, is I think it was 8 or 10 of my friends, and they filled out my strengths, my weaknesses, my repeated mistakes, and I think it was opportunities. But it was done without me knowing who it was. So I didn't know who wrote the question or wrote the answers.
That could be kind of savage.
But it would work because people
Totally,
want to tell you stuff, and they can often see your shadows or
and what you can't, or
what you can't see because you're so focused on doing stuff. So it was an anonymous audit from all my friends, and even looking back on some of those answers, it was incredible to see like their insight, because they love you, they care about you, and they want to see you do well. But sometimes they don't want to hurt your feelings, so they don't want to tell you these things. So some of those answers I got in that anonymous audit were like mind-blowing.
That's amazing. Like, what an amazing way to get clarity over certain things in your life that otherwise maybe would take you years to kind of recognize.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I read a couple of them now, and I'm still doing them 4 years later, 3 years later.
I mean, it's part of our like innate traits, hey? So it takes time to like workshop those out.
Yeah.
But I love this because I'm so big on tools that can like help us. And I talk a lot about manifestation, but it feels like what you're talking about with this, it's somewhat manifestation, but it's like putting it out there and then leaning into the strategies that can help you to change and to attract those kind of things in your life. I actually spoke in the first episode about how I did something very similar in a meditation challenge. And then I had to write about this day in the future, let's say 10, 20 years down the track, whatever I wanted to put it down to. And I wrote very specifically about this scenario, and I won't go into it. People can go listen to it on the first episode. But what I wrote and put away and kind of forgot about, I realized 12 months down the track, I had manifested totally wild things. My partner, my dream home, a kitchen that I had designed so specifically we were in the process of building, like just mind-blowing stuff that I thought maybe this will happen in 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of putting that intention to doing these things and to this like designing our life, as you kind of explain it.
Yeah. What was the meditation challenge?
It was actually a Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation challenge, but it was during COVID, and my friend started a WhatsApp group and actually created these daily tasks for us to do with each meditation. So it was a way of taking it one step further and letting it really resonate and sink in. And I found that really beneficial. I think when you're in that mindset of like being really connected to yourself, and then you do these kind of exercises, the ability to like manifest and create them becomes so much more stronger and connected and aligned.
Yeah, 100%. I love the fact that pairing up, and I know a lot of incredible people you're doing it beautifully too, is like bringing spirituality or that connection to soul into business. And into the structures we have in life at the moment without trying to like fight against it. So how can we bring things across? And that you had the meditation part, but you also had the embracing the action off the back of it and embodiment of it. Embodiment is massive. And that's one thing I struggle with the most is, I say things and advocate for people to do certain things, but doing it myself from time to time is a challenge. And that's where I work to, be the student just as much as the teacher. And some people have called me a guru, and I laugh at it because it's like the gurus are like 80, 90 years old and they've been doing it for decades. And I'm just like a guy with a white belt, just trying to soak up as much knowledge as possible and then impart the stuff that's worked for me, and people can take that with a grain of salt. So I don't push stuff down people's
I think
throats.
that's great though, because it brings the human element into it. And like I always used to beat myself up if I wasn't being super religious with my meditation practice and meditating every day. And because there's been periods where I have, and then when I fall out of that, I'm like, oh, like you're not good enough, or you're not going to reap the rewards or whatever. And now as I've progressed, I'm like, no, like this is just the human experience. Like life gets busy sometimes. Sometimes I have to be in the do and the work and the focus, and that stuff doesn't get my priority and my attention. But other times it does. And I think each time you fall away from it, you find it again quicker the next time.
Yeah, because it works too. And life is a scale of many different facets. And if we put one scale, the being, and then one, the doing, like you have to tip it because otherwise, if you're in your meditative state all the time and you're super zen, like you don't want to go and do a podcast. You don't want to go and create the business. You don't want to really do anything.
Stay in your bubble.
Exactly. You want to be here. You want to be like on the beach, just cruising. And so I think our ability, and this is relative to nervous system and breath work and those sorts of things too, is your ability to modulate yourself going from action to being and knowing through mindset of where you want to be and why. And again, that comes back to that life by design. Why do I want to be the person I want to be? Who is it serving? And then all the different little factors and specifics come from that, like meditating at certain times, doing breath work at certain times, creating space for yourself to be more creative, getting into your right brain, which is your creative brain, instead of your left brain, which is your doing. So there's all these like yin and yangs of doing and being throughout our life. And if you don't take the time to actually stop and find that balance and find the black and the white, then you're most likely going to be stuck in one and not have awareness about how to drop out of it and come back into the other side and then modulate between the two.
So fascinating, isn't it? It's such an important lesson that I feel like we continually have to focus on and come back to throughout our whole life.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the biggest things with breath work is it gives people this opportunity to slow down their brain waves. And when we slow down our brain waves, we become more relaxed and we get more into that dreamlike state. And in the dreamlike state, you have more visions, you have more clarity, you have more stillness, and then all of that creates awareness. So the more aware you are of things, like I'm not aware how to build a rocket and fly it to the moon. But, if I put enough time and effort and energy into it and talk to the right people, I'd find out eventually. Probably might not get there in this lifetime, but it's awareness of how to do something and then actionable steps like in your 21-day challenge. That is when stuff starts to change. Like your manifestation. If you hadn't done anything and just sat there being like, I want that dream kitchen. I want that dream partner. And you're just still sitting there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
You'd still be sitting there. But you walked the talk for long enough in a consistent way, and that is what created your dream life.
So true. So let's talk about some of the tools then. Let's maybe start with breath work, because obviously you are a very skilled breath work coach. Let's talk about what type of breath work there is, what you love working with, and I guess the overall benefits of breath work that we haven't already covered.
Wow. So I like to think of breath work as this spectrum. You can think of it as a rainbow or just this spectrum of different opportunities and techniques and experiences. My love for breath work started down this end of awareness, spirituality, experience, like out of body, almost like psychedelic. And I've never been on a psychedelic psilocybin or LSD or ayahuasca journey before, and I may never, but I believe that stuff calls to you, but you can get there with your breath. You don't need that stuff. And so my first experience of breath work was down this end, and it was wild. It was out of body. I forgot I was in the room I was in, and I remember vividly opening up this trap door and getting into the clouds, and I was in the clouds, and I could see every God that I've ever learned about. So God, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, Tane Mahuta, all the Māori gods from my childhood.
Yeah.
And I was like in the clouds, just wigging out a little bit, like where am I? And meanwhile, I'm in a room with tetany in my hands going like, continuing to breathe. And so this juxtaposition of me being so peaceful and in awe, and my body's just all cramped up in this room. And so that was my first experience. And then I started to learn about the other end, which is performance or functional breath, more meditative. And that is where I got into functional breath work. I studied with XPT and Laird Hamilton, who created XPT, as a big wave surfer. And so his whole premise is, how can I increase the amount of carbon dioxide in my system enough for me to hold my breath longer when I get knocked off a 20, 30, 40 foot wave and have to hold my breath for 2 minutes underwater. And so those approaches there with the functional breath work has led me to really be passionate about nervous system regulation for people, understanding stress, and driving a lot more of awareness of breath throughout daily life. Because we can't go and have that experience that I had in the clouds every day. Like, it's too much for our nervous system. And the way you're breathing there is not functional either. So I love the fact that our breath is with us all the time. It's free, it's yours, and you can control it. No one else can tell you what to do with it unless you're being guided in a session. So it's a very powerful tool that is very, very underrated, and it's starting to finally be given the light that it deserves.
So what's happening on a physiological level when we're getting that extra oxygen into our body?
What's happening is everything's going to work better. So the most important part is we want more oxygen in the system, but you are actually, right now, you would be at 98, 99% oxygen saturation in your blood already. So your blood has loads of oxygen in it all the time. What we want is more carbon dioxide. And often that is seen as a waste gas or something we don't want in the system, but that's false. And so a lot of the new studies that are coming out from amazing people in the space is, the higher we can have our carbon dioxide, the higher the level of oxygen in the cell and in the tissue, the more efficient we run. So things like doing mini breath holds, doing like VO2 max training. You can do gear breathing. So there's like, you breathe in through your nose, out through your nose. That's gear 1. In nose, out mouth is gear 2. And then mouth is gear 3. So if I'm doing exercise, I want to try and stay in gear 1 as long as possible. The reason for that is it's going to keep your CO2 higher. So your efficiency of oxygen into the cell increases. And then if I need to, because I'm working out, hopefully this isn't confusing people.
No, this is great. It's a really good explanation.
When I'm breathing in and out of my nose, I'm going to get to that point where I'm like, and I need to offload more CO2. So that's when I start to use. So every time I exhale, I'm letting go of carbon dioxide. But a lot of people, what they do is they have exhales that are too big, and you're getting rid of CO2 that you want to hold on to for longer, because the CO2 helps the oxygen detach from the hemoglobin in the bloodstream and be put into the tissue or the organ. And that's called when we don't have that CO2 in the system, that's caused from over breathing too much.
Right.
And so we go to, say, gear 2 too quickly, and then we're getting rid of CO2.
Right.
So then we have gear 3 when you're, redlining yourself in a HIIT workout. Say you're at 1R, or you're doing something at St. Haven in the strength and conditioning studio and sending it.
Yeah.
That's when you go to gear 3, which is in the mouth, out the mouth.
Right.
But you want to be there for only as long as you need to. Then you go back to gear 2, in the nose, out the mouth. Because you don't get nitric oxide as you inhale in through your mouth. You only get nitric oxide when you inhale through your nose. So
interesting.
your nose should be for breathing.
Yeah.
Your mouth is only basically for emergency or when you need lots of oxygen in and out. And also to get rid of the CO2 out of the system.
So there's all these little breathing hacks that you can do actually while you're working out and doing different things to
100%.
improve your performance.
Yes. Yep. And I think the biggest one is and I work with my clients on this, is improving your CO2 tolerance. So how my training week will be split myself is I'll do 3 all body workouts, and that'll be push pull legs for all 3. And then I'll do 1 a week where I'm working on doing breath holds, and say I've got some weights in my hands and I'm walking on an exhale hold. I'm getting to the point where I really need to breathe. I'm trying to relax, just like in your meditation. It's like relax through it, get past that point of the need to breathe, continue to relax, and then I breathe. So I'm building up my ability to hold more carbon dioxide in my system, so that when I go and do a run, or when I go and do reformer Pilates or whatever it is, my body can hold more CO2 in the system, which improves performance.
Fascinating. So when you're seeing someone working optimally with their breathing, are you seeing like not just improve like function at the gym, but also improve like mental clarity, improved recovery, improved, I assume, cellular repair? Look, what are you seeing?
Yeah, because it's the thing that we do the most, you want it to be working optimally. So the biggest results I see from people are way more mental clarity. And that comes from, again, increased CO2 in the system, increased performance, a lot less stress in their life too, and the ability when they do get stressed, especially at work and in meetings, when you're doing a lot of talking like we're doing, we're over breathing right now from this.
Yeah, interesting.
So the ability for them to go, right, how can I come back to center, nasal breath, a lot more oxygen going to the brain, more mental clarity, less stress in the body, stillness. So those are the biggest ones. Improved performance, mental clarity. I've also had a client have the best sex of their life after learning to nasal breathe and breathe diaphragmatically as well.
Epic.
So yeah, he
Okay,
came
give me
back
some
to
of
me
those.
one day and he was like, Eugene, I don't know what happened, but you've taught me something really, really special. And I was like, I'm learning too.
You're doing tantric teaching without realizing it.
No, I didn't
feel.
realize at
People
all.
are bringing this like breath work into the bedroom. I love it.
So yeah, and that's all from breathing down into your diaphragm and taking pressure away from your heart. So the diaphragm is like this big, beautiful muscle that is attached to your pelvic floor as well. And when we're using it correctly, it lowers heart rate, lowers blood pressure, can lower hypertension.
It's interesting because I've been trying to work on diaphragmatic breathing since I've been pregnant, just to help strengthen that pelvic floor as well. But it's interesting when you look at babies, they do it so well and you can see their stomachs rise and fall and rise and fall. And as we get older, we stop and we just start breathing here. And I feel like we need to be learning how to breathe from babies.
100%. And it's because they don't have any stress in their life. That is the biggest reason why. And you know what happens when we go to school and we put a uniform on and we start to, have to be a certain way and seem like something else to people. We remove authenticity Like that baby's not thinking about you looking at it. Baby couldn't care less unless it wants some milk. And so it's like, it's going to breathe the way it wants to and the way it knows how to, which is properly. And then we start to sit up more. We start to wear tighter clothes. We start to speak a lot more too. And when we're talking, you know, I'm pulling my breath from my chest. But if I was going to speak properly to you, I'd start to speak like this. And when I get to the end of my exhale, I'd start to breathe in through my nose and into my diaphragm, but that's not conducive to, it's not
like I need to open up entirely. Sitting,
and even me, a couple of times I've felt my pelvic floors on when it doesn't need to be during this episode. And so I've released it a couple of times and then just reset.
That's a big one I've heard, especially I've heard going through this in pregnancy, but women obviously like pelvic floor is always just so strong because we just hold so much like tension and we're just used to being like this and we just need to learn to relax everything and
exactly
drop in.
And like my bicep right now, it needs to be able to turn off to turn on. Like if it was always tensing, it would just what's it called when you get it'd cramp. It'd cramp like crazy because all the fiber's just on all the time. And so your pelvic floor is actually attached to your diaphragm and they're connected to each other. And it's really important to have it off because this is like, you know, your sexual organs and your hips and a lot of stress lives in this space in the body. And, you know, if your pelvic floor is always on, there's always a bit of tension in there when we don't need it. So it's looking for, like breath also allows you to relax your body more and that stillness allows you to check in. And so something like a yoga nidra or non-sleep deep rest meditation are perfect for noticing tension in the body and letting it go more.
I love that you're talking about different types of breath work because obviously, as we mentioned before, like Wim Hof is so incredibly popular and he's so big and he's really, I guess, like grown the breathwork community, which is amazing. But I was having a conversation with someone recently about, is his style of breathwork necessarily the best style? Because we're almost putting our body into a form of hyperventilation, or we can quite easily. And then we're putting our body under stress and we're potentially raising our cortisol levels. And these are things we necessarily want to be doing frequently in a world that's already filled with so much of that.
Yes, such a great question. And the Wim Hof method is one of 1,000 methods of breath. And if I was a stressed person, my job is stressful, family life is stressful, and you're trying to cope, I wouldn't be doing the Wim Hof method. Or I would be tying it to a relaxing method. So what I like to do is build a mountain of breath. I love nature, so I always go back to, you know, different natural phenomena. And so you'd start by warming the body up, get a circular breath going, just in and out of, in the nose, out the mouth, using your diaphragm. Then you can go into something like the Wim Hof method, but come out of it in a really calm, grounded way. I personally do not do upregulating breath every day, especially on days I know that I'm going to be getting into the plunge, which is stressful, sauna, which is stressful. They're good stresses, but they are stressful on the body. And your body doesn't know the difference between someone tooting at you from another car driving to work and you doing the Wim Hof method. The nervous system thinks it's all the same thing. So if you're a stress head and you want to de-stress and be more calm and be more grounded, do not do the Wim Hof method or do it sporadically like you would do a strength session or a form of Pilates maybe once or twice.
That is such good advice. I have to say that much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like any kind of trend we see online. It's so easy to just like grab it and take it and run with it. But we really have to think about around our own personal circumstances. And is this benefiting us?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, Wim wouldn't show you the hours of meditation and stillness he has. You just see him doing his technique and you think he's like that all the time. And so what I would say to people is commit to a practice like the Wim Hof method, but be open and start to try different methodologies attached to it, and understand, what your body actually needs. And if you are stressed and you get home stressed and you're anxious, all these things, something like that is going to stress you out more. So come to stillness more often, as often as you can. And naturally you'll start to go, all right, I don't need something that's going to stress me out more. The Wim Hof method will, because you're over breathing. You want something that's going to be nasal. So you're getting nitric oxide into the body through the nasal ducts, and something that is going to keep the body relaxed, not jarring like so. And I love the Wim Hof method because it makes you feel incredible and increases your performance and your alertness. But something really simple technique that people can use is the ocean breath, or the ujjayi breath. And you tighten your throat a little bit, going in and out of the nose, and hopefully they can hear it, but it sounds like you want to breathe into your belly, your ribs, and people don't know they can breathe into their back too. So it's in, tightening the throat, and out through the nose as well, tightening the throat. And all through that, I'm relaxing behind my eyes, my jaw. I have a lot of tension in my jaw, so I'm trying to relax my jaw. And we're breathing, but it's so different to what any sort of Tumo Wim Hof method or over breathing is. And so more often than not, you're going to want that. I feel relaxed and
It's
sleepy.
amazing when you put conscious thought to it, and for breath to go and land in certain places in your body.
Yeah.
How much more conscious you become, and also you realize how disconnected you potentially are. Like breathing into the back is not easy.
No.
That takes practice.
No, it's taken me ages to get there. And, I tell people, you can breathe into your back. They're like, huh?
Yeah.
Some people don't even know they can breathe into their lower belly.
Yeah.
And you want to breathe in a 360 degree way. So if I'm looking down at our diaphragms, a lot of people are just breathing out the front into the belly, but you can breathe into the belly, the ribs, and the back. And so that's a true 360 degree horizontal breath. A lot of us breathe vertically, like you pointed out before, and that causes stress, literally. So you're like giving yourself micro stress throughout the day, and you're like, why am I stressed? So breathe better.
Fascinating. So what about these other modalities you spoke about? So cold plunge and saunas, fire and ice type therapy.
Yeah.
What do you see the benefits of these, and what do you think is the optimal amount of times a week someone should be doing these kinds of things?
Yeah, I work with a lot of people on an individual level, and it's case by case. But I think the caveat to this is women and the menstrual cycle they're on.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like this is not spoken about enough.
It's
and
not.
I have only recently started taking this into account.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important.
Yeah. It's massive. And I don't want to sit here and pretend I'm a pro and understand the women's body on this yet. I've asked a few of my friends who are really tapped into their body on what it feels like and what their protocol is around cold. Some women refuse to do it. In my sphere of spiritual, really tapped in yogis, others are really aware of when to do it. And my current understanding is that, so you've got your week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Weeks 2, the week leading into ovulation, and the week of ovulation, a woman should not be doing cold therapy, to my current knowledge. But weeks 1 and 4, when you're the week away from entering into and the week of, those weeks are okay to be doing cold therapy. It's less damaging on the body, because when you're leading into ovulation and the week of ovulation, you want your body to be warm, because essentially it's creating life. and you want to reward your body for that, not try and like pull it out of that state of like warmth and abundance and more creativity, because cold is stressful on the body, but it's a good stress. And so it's like weeks 1 and 4 I'd recommend, but those middle weeks I would remain away from the cold if you're a woman. Men, we get away scot-free.
Yeah.
We can do it whenever we want.
Bloody bastards.
Yeah, I know.
Get away with so much.
How dare we, you assholes.
We've got to deal with it all.
Yeah, I know. But you also, something you have the opportunity to do, which I will never have, is to create life. And that's a fucking superpower, which is so incredible.
Totally
and I'm in awe of
I'm
women.
totally in awe of women since getting pregnant. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah, blows my mind.
True superheroes.
Yeah. So, yeah, secretly I think women are more powerful than men. Yeah.
I have to hook that one.
But don't tell anyone. Yeah. Don't make a reel out of that. Yeah. So,
For men, though, it's with saunas, isn't it? That if you're trying to conceive, it can reduce your sperm count. Is that right?
I'm kind of afraid to get my sperm tested right now.
You're in there like every day.
So many saunas. I should put an ice pack on my nuts, but I don't. But
now's your omen to start.
Yeah.
Next time we're in that sauna with Eugene, where's that ice pack?
But so men sperm, especially in hot saunas, does drop. I don't know by how much, but it's something to be aware of if you are trying to create a child. But a really great protocol for sauna. Now, infrared saunas, great.
Yep.
But I love traditional saunas because of the heat shock that you get from the high heat. And so a hot sauna for me would be upwards of 90 degrees Celsius. And, a lot of traditionals are around like 80, 85. Like you want them hotter the better, not too hot. You don't want it like 120, otherwise you'd cook. But you want the body to adapt and to be stressed, but then also to modulate that stress through gentle breath, like that ocean breath in the sauna. So I sauna 5-6 times a week, which is a lot. But even if you're going 2 or 3 times a week, I think they did in a study, I know they did in a study in 2017, I believe it was men and women. They found that people sauning at 85 degrees or more for 20 minutes per day had a reduced mortality rate of, anything disease, anything cancer, anything, going wrong with their body, all-cause mortality dropped by between 15 to 20%. So all it is doing is heating the body up, heat shock proteins are being released, and your cells are just getting stronger. You also get massive detoxification benefits. Like the classic is you go and have a big night out, and then you're like, I need to get rid of all the toxins in my body. And that's true too. So a lot of that is being leached out through your sweat, which is so important. But it's also important to hydration is so important next to the sauna. So I use, St. Haven uses SODI, which is a magnesium, potassium, and sodium, salt mix, which is really important to rehydrate. So you give the body what it needs after you've stressed it and after you've ripped out all the water from the system and the cells. The plunge can go really well with that in a contrast session, or you can do the plunge alone. Sauna and plunge they go great by themselves, but then you get this really incredible increase in blood flow, dopamine, like high vibe when you do them together.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I
love it. It's the one thing I miss the most about being pregnant. I miss doing them so much.
Yeah, I bet. And they're so much fun. And
Yeah.
the community that's created around these, sauna and plunge sessions is pretty special too. So I'm excited for you to be,
Not
be
long
back
now,
in the
2 months
space
and I'll be there.
Yeah.
Leave the baby at home with Sean. It's honestly amazing. And I think I want to touch on quickly how you brought up self-love before, because I think it's so good to do all these incredible modalities and to work on our body on a physical level, but does our body respond the same if we don't lean into self-love, love, respect for ourselves? I would love you to elaborate on that a bit because I know it's important to you and your teachings.
Yeah, I think it's big for me because, and if I look back over the last few years, a lot of what I did wasn't driven from self-love, and not in an egotistical way, but from a way of, does this thing that I'm doing serve me, or am I doing it to appear like I've got it all figured out, or appear like I'm enjoying life? And so self-love is self-discipline. And when you say no to things and yes to other things, you build trust with yourself. And after a while, it's really fulfilling when you know you want your life by design to be a certain way, and then you start embodying it through saying yes and no to different things and increasing the love of yourself. From there, that is when you start to get really powerful. And the more power and energy you have in your body, the more you have to love others and to spread your creations and your passions with the world. A lot of people that don't have self-love will never really amount to anything in a way of abundance. So if you look at a lot of people in business, if you go right back down to the core of why they're doing something, it's usually to impress other people. And because there's billions of people in the world, you're never, ever going to impress everyone. So I think you need to, if you're maybe feeling this, like, oh, fuck, like why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the point? Why do I have the nice car or the big, beautiful house or the whatever it is, materialistic thing? I love material things. Like I want all the things in the world, but I want them to come from a place of self-love, trust, and an abundance mindset rather than a desire or fear-based mindset. So getting to the core of asking yourself, why do I actually want this thing? And being honest with yourself. People lie to themselves all the time, whether consciously or unconsciously, but Breathwork has given me the ability to just take a back step and be like, why am I actually doing this? Is this true? Do I actually want this? And that has led me to have more self-love, make better health decisions, say no a little more often. I still have people pleaser tendencies in me, which, flare up every now and again, but I'm more aware of them and can reset quicker. So where are you coming from? Self-love, abundance, or fear and desire? And I know which one I would rather come from because it's so much more fulfilling.
And I think for anyone listening that feels like they're in a place of lack of self-love, a lot of the tools that you've spoken about today potentially can be the first steps to help to, exactly as you use, to help to connect to that place and find that door into self-love and acceptance.
It's a powerful journey you can go on, and I think starting with a community that resonate with you. So whether this is your local Pilates studio or your local breathwork studio or like a group of friends that are curious, it's like be the person that sparks the conversation, be the person that asks the question, be the person that shares the edgy podcast that you've sort of been curious about and you want other people to know more about, but you're maybe a little bit afraid of judgment. And there's a lot of those people. I know I'm talking to a lot of people right now who are on the edge and they're scared of judgment. But when you flip that and you go like, this is an opportunity for me to feel more and also connect more to other people through being healthier and living in this far more beautiful way, then you start really cool conversations. And I've had so many people reach out. I've had friends, share that they're grateful for me taking this path in life. And I had a friend, I went to Tony Robbins last year, and I actually was one of the people that stood up and spoke to Tony and shared my life by design in front of him, which was wild. But I wasn't going to stand up. And I was like, other people can go first. I'll just chill and enjoy. And I remember like half an hour before I stood up and put my hand up to speak to Tony, one of my best friends texted me and said, whatever happens, go first. And so I'm getting shivers talking about it now. So thank you, Sam. Love you, bro. And that, he knows the mission I'm on because I've shared it with him enough times to be like, he knows how to push me and keep me up to a higher standard. But if we don't share, the standards we want to keep with other people, we just keep them internal to us and we don't share with our community, we don't go out and find those people, then it's really hard because you have to keep yourself up to that standard all the time. But if you've got people on that level, you dip below it, they're like, we're pulling you up. And it's community, connection. And when you lose connection to yourself, you've built that design of human around you that knows you good enough to pull you back up to where you need and should be.
Such honestly profound advice, like really, really important.
And it's simple too. So
I think we've overcomplicated it, haven't we? In a society, we don't really prioritize community, I think, as much as some other cultures and such.
Yeah.
And it's a really good reminder, I think.
big time.
How would you feel about walking us through a little 60-second breathwork practice that people can do at home? Maybe not if they're driving, but...
Don't do while you're driving, please, because I always get people to close their eyes.
Yeah.
How do we want people to feel?
I reckon to recenter and ground, something just calming, something that people can use to just settle their nervous system. Because I think we're so constantly so heightened. I think something easy and practical that people can kind of take home with them.
Yeah, cool. So what I do is we're going to do something called a circular breath, and we're going to be focusing on getting the breath into the belly and the ribs to start. And this may feel foreign to people because maybe they haven't breathed there all day. We're going to let's do 15 breaths. That'll be about 60 seconds, probably a little bit more. 2-part breath. Part 1 of the breath is going down into the belly. Part 2 is going up into the chest really lightly. You're not pulling your shoulders up, but it's more expanding through the heart. And I want you to, as you close down your eyes and we prepare for this 2-part breath, I want you to go into the heart or the chest space. So just gently unhooking your awareness or your noticing from behind your eyes where we normally sit with our awareness and down into the chest. I'll breathe for the first few breaths with you and then I'll count you through the next ones. We're just going for a nice full breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Into the belly, into the chest, out through the mouth. Into the belly, into the chest, out through the mouth. I want you to keep breathing there if you're listening to this right now, filling up your belly and your beautiful chest. Each exhale, as it drops out through the mouth, you're softening everything from behind your neck, down into your traps, your shoulders, your elbows, everything. It's like it's just draining into the ground. Go for 2 more here. connecting, visualizing the heart space. Now just take a moment still in the heart space in the middle of the chest. And I'll ask the question, if you are operating from that space in the middle of the chest today, what would your first action be in the world before you open your eyes, visualizing that little action? Maybe it's smiling towards someone, buying someone a coffee, connecting more with the people around you, slowing down. Just wait for that action to come through. And we'll take a deep breath in, hold at the top. And sigh it out with a smile.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Eugene. You're a wizard. I loved our conversations. I always wrap up my episodes by asking our guests to leave a little verbal entry in the Test Talks diaries. So this can just be a little quote or an insight or a lesson you've learned that you feel is important to share. So what would you like to leave behind?
Am I looking at the camera when I'm saying this, or is this to you?
You can do whatever you want.
I think one of the most powerful quotes I try and live by is be the change you want to see in others. So yeah, the more I've tried to be that change for other people, hug guys, not just girls, hug a little longer, value my health, slow down, look at the sun, be that change that I want to see in other people. You lead by example rather than saying, do as I say, not as I do. So I want to be the guy that embodies that.
I love it. One of the best quotes. Thank you so much, Eugene.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Tess. All the best.
Thanks so much for listening. If you loved the episode, please subscribe, rate, and review. It honestly means so much and helps to keep these conversations going. And I'd love to connect with you. You can message me on Instagram or TikTok, and I've left all the details from the episode in the show notes below. I'll see you next week.